Hi everybody, welcome back to Harvest Moon Farm. If this is your first time on my channel, my name is Mickey. Welcome. If this is not your first time, welcome back. I really appreciate your support. Today we are going to do prep of some things that we can use as part of our meals, ingredients in our meals. I'm going to bread some chicken and get it in my freezer. I cleaned out my freezer yesterday so that I could maximize the space. I just have an apartment fridge, so it's a small fridge with just a little freezer at the top, so I don't have a ton of space right now, but cleaning it out yesterday, reorganizing it, so I think I've got room for what I'm going to do today. So as I said, we're going to prep some chicken we're going to pound it flat, we're going to bread it, and then I'm going to wrap it up and put it in the freezer. I'm also going to make some biscuits to go in the freezer, and I've made these biscuits before. If you guys want to search, or I'll link that video. And these biscuits are delicious. They bake up great straight from the freezer, and you can use them for biscuits and gravy. You can use them as the bread at your meal, whatever you want to do. We're going to start with our chicken, and I've got the leftover chicken from one of the other meals that I made, and then I've got another fresh package of chicken today, so that should give us plenty of chicken for our meals. Some of these pieces of chicken are gigantic. And what we're going to do first is just cut off all this excess fat, because I don't like that on my chicken. I don't think probably anybody does. So we'll just cut off the fat that's around the edges. Oops. And then we'll cover this first batch of chicken up with some plastic wrap, and we'll use our tenderizer to pound this all flat. This piece is enormous, even after I cut the fat off. That's crazy. So as I said, we're going to go ahead and just cover this with plastic wrap. And then we can go ahead and pound these flat. You could also put them in a Ziploc baggie if you like. I usually just cover them with plastic. It works just as well. And then I'm just going to use the flat side, the non-tenderizer side, and just pound these until they are flat and pretty even in terms of the thickness. Now, if you don't want the chicken to be this big, you can cut these pieces in half. I'm going to go ahead and leave them. That gives me a little more flexibility with what I do with them, so I could cook them up and use half for one meal and save half for another meal. And I'm just going to stack these on a plate while I take care of the other package of chicken. These pieces aren't quite so big, and they seem to be a lot less fatty. There is still some fat, but not nearly as much as was on those other pieces. I bought this chicken at a different store than the first batch. So there's some fat on these that I'm going to go ahead and get rid of. Fat and sometimes the little gristly pieces. Just do a few of these at a time. So same thing, we're just going to pound these pieces flat, trying to make sure that the pieces are even once you're done. And then once they're all done, then we'll start our breading process. Okay, so we've got all of our chicken flattened, fat cut off. So now we'll be able to start our breading process. Okay, so we're going to start putting our breading together. And for our main breading, we're going to use breadcrumbs. These are some that I made from old bread that I had. This is all I have though, so I did buy some panko breadcrumbs just in case this is not enough for all this chicken. I'll go ahead and use all of that one. And then I'm going to add some salt and pepper. I'm not going to add Italian seasoning or anything like that. That way I can prep this chicken for use in any kind of recipe, not just an Italian recipe. So we'll do our salt. We'll put about 2 teaspoons in there. We'll add some pepper. And I don't really ever measure this, I just kind of eyeball it. One thing I am going to add though is some Parmesan cheese. So this cheese came from some fresh Parm wedges that I grated and freeze dried. So let me go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of cheese to this. When I say a little, I probably mean a lot. I'm going to add some cheese to this though because I like cheese on everything. So regardless of the recipe, it'll be good. I'm just going to stir this up and just mix it around a little bit. I used to have some trays that were perfect for breading. I don't know what happened to them. They could be in my storage unit. They may have gotten tossed. I don't honestly know. They could have gone home with my ex-husband. I really don't remember what happened to them when I was packing. So I'm going to get out some cooling racks because once we have all this breaded, we're going to let it sit out for a little bit, covered up to dry. That will really help the breading to stay on your chicken so that once we put it in the freezer, we won't lose all of our breading in the baggies. Probably should have bought some more egg colors out because some of these have been bad when I opened them. So we're going to open them one at a time and just make sure we don't end up with any rotten eggs in our process. Whoops, I think I missed the trash. I am going to add just a little bit of milk to this just to help it go a little further. And then we're just gonna whisk these eggs up a little bit. Okay, so the process we're gonna use is we're gonna dip them in flour, just plain flour. We're gonna dip them in egg, and then we're gonna dip them in our breading, making sure that everything is covered well, and then we're gonna put it on our little cooling rack for it to start drying. So just dip it in flour first, and this process just helps the breading stick. want to make sure that it's well covered. And then I'm just going to lay it on my rack over here. Breading any kind of meat or anything is a really messy process, so just be prepared. You're fine until you get to the egg, and then of course everything is sticky. But this is what's going to give us the best results, so this is what we're going to do. A couple of years ago, I think that was a couple of years ago, I want to say I had 40 pieces of plastic. I had 40, I can't remember if I had 40 chicken breasts or if I had 40 pounds of chicken. I don't know. I don't remember. It was a lot though. This is actually more than I thought it was, but I love this breaded chicken. I used it for so many things when I had it in my freezer before. And so that's something that I just wanted to get done. So I have some for the fall and winter. It's easy to just pull some out, let it thaw, and then you can fry it up, bake it up, whatever you want to do, and make whatever you want with it. So chicken parm obviously is a good one. Just fried chicken, potatoes, chicken and rice, whatever. All of those are good. And pounding them flat makes them cook a lot. Well, first of all, they'll cook faster, but they'll also cook more evenly. Whoa, they'll also cook more evenly. So we'll just keep breading all of this chicken up. And if we run out of our egg mixture, we'll just go ahead and make up some more. Same with our base, or same with our primary coating with the breadcrumbs, although I think I might have enough here. Who knows? We'll see. Like some of these chicken pieces, once you get them all pounded out, they're really big. So I'm going to go ahead and add one more egg. I just have the chicken that I've got in the bowl and one more piece, but it's going to be not quite enough. We want to make sure that we're getting this covered well so that our breading, our top coat of breading will stick. Okay, last piece, and it's like probably the biggest one. It's a very large piece of chicken. All right, so I'm gonna dump these leftovers. There's just a little bit of breading left, a little bit of flour. Dump those, dump the egg. I'm gonna clean this up a little bit, and then we'll start on our biscuits. But we're just gonna leave our chicken pieces for a couple of hours, covered up. It is cool in my house, so don't panic. Couple of hours, maybe only an hour, and really that's all it takes to get your breading to stick well. We just kind of want to give it a chance to kind of set on there, and then we are going to wrap it up and put it in the freezer. So I had a Zoom call that I had to get on, and so now our chicken's ready, I think, to go ahead and wrap up and put in the freezer. Once we've got that put away, then we'll go ahead and start on our biscuits. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I've got some parchment paper here. And some Ziploc baggies. We need at least a couple. I'm going to go ahead and write the date on here just so I know when I did them, so I know how fast I need to get them used up. So I'm just going to take one of these pieces of chicken, put it inside the parchment paper, and just fold it over, and then I'm going to stick it in this plastic bag. That way I can easily pull out just a single piece of chicken if I want, or 2 pieces based on how many people I'm feeding, if it's just me, if I'm making something else that I want to meal prep. So doing it like this, the chicken won't stick together, if I didn't just say that. And then we won't lose any of our breading when we pull the chicken apart. Once I get this sealed, I'm going to kind of shift this chicken around to get this bag as flat as I can. That way it's going to set better in my freezer. And I'm going to use a cookie sheet. And we're going to stack them on here until they're frozen solid in flat packages, and then I can take them off and we can stand them up in our freezer, or whatever works out the easiest, to make sure that I can get everything in my freezer. And if when you start packaging them up like this, if it feels like the breading is coming off, just let them sit a little bit longer and then they'll be fine. I'm just about out of this size of parchment paper. I have another box down there, but I think it's the bigger size. I need to get some more of this ordered. I do like to use parchment paper quite a bit. It just makes your cleanup on things so much easier. If you've never tried it, I would highly encourage you to give it a try. And we'll use one more bag to get these last 3 in, and they'll be ready to go in the freezer. Gosh, how is it possible that it is the middle of August already? As I'm producing this video today, it's August 19th. It just seems crazy. All the kids are starting to go back to school. My kids, my grandkids, I guess I should say. They all started last week. Alrighty, last piece. Okay, so I have 11 chicken breasts, all breaded and ready to go in the freezer. So I'm going to put them in on this tray, and once they're frozen solid, then I'll arrange them in the freezer so that they fit the best. Oh my. Alrighty, so we are going to go ahead now and start on our biscuits. So these biscuits come from Becky at Acre Homestead. If you've never had these, they are so good. Alright, we're going to start by putting some milk, and you can either use vinegar or lemon juice. I have white vinegar, not sure where it's at the moment, so I'm going to use lemon juice, but we want to put 2 cups of milk. Wait, where did I find that? No, I lied. So we're going to actually use 3/4 cup. You can use half and half, or I don't have any half and half, so I'm going to use just regular milk. This is 2% milk, so I'm going to put that in my bowl. to our milk, we're going to add 1 tablespoon of vinegar, or lemon juice in my case. You can use either one. We're just going to mix this up and set it to the side while I put together our dry ingredients. So we're going to start with 2 cups of all-purpose flour. We're going to put that in our large bowl. And we're going to add baking powder, baking soda, and salt. Okay, so to our flour, we're going to add 2 teaspoons of baking powder, a 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda, and 1 teaspoon of salt. Next, we're going to add 8 tablespoons or 1 stick of cold butter, and I am going to cut this in small pieces so that it's easier to work into my flour mixture. And then we're going to use our pastry cutter, and we're going to work this butter into our dry ingredients until it resembles breadcrumbs. So we just want to keep working this butter with our pastry knife here, and it's going to break it up and mix it in with our flour. And it will start taking on the appearance of breadcrumbs. That's when you know that your butter is worked in well enough. Ow. And you do want to use cold butter. That cold butter is what helps make your baked goods, helps give them that flaky consistency. Okay, I think we're good. Let's get all that butter back in our bowl. Okay, so now we're going to make a well in the center of our bowl, and we're going to pour in our milk and vinegar or milk and lemon juice. Then I'm going to use my Danish whisk. You can use a fork, a spoon, whatever works best for you, but we want to mix this until it's just combined. We don't want to over mix it. We just want to make sure there's no dry spots in it. And then we want to flour our surface. And dump our mixture out onto this floured surface. We want to kind of pat this into a rectangle. And then we want to fold it in thirds like you're folding a letter. And then we want to roll this out until it is about double of the size that it started, still keeping it in that rectangle shape. Trying to use as little extra flour as possible. So once we've got it rolled out so that it's about twice the size that it was, we're going to do our fold again. Fold it into thirds. It's kind of sticking. Add a little more flour here. And then we're going to roll it out again till it's about double the size that it is right this minute. And then then we're gonna do our fold one more time. That. And then we're gonna roll this out until it's about a 1/2 inch thick. So, I don't know how well you can see this. I'll hold it up here in just a second. So, you can see the butter inside there, and that is what's going to give us that flakiness. So I've got just a biscuit cutter here, and I'm just going to cut these out. And that's probably not 1/2 inch, so it won't be quite as thick as I wanted. That's okay. Then we're going to gather up what's left, and handling it as little as possible, we're going to roll it back out because we don't want our hands warming that butter up. We want it to stay in chunks like it is in our dough. And then we'll just cut. And make as many biscuits as we can out of this dough. So it looks like I'm going to have about 10. And once I get my deep freeze up in here, then I'm going to make a whole bunch of these and have them in my freezer. So there we go. Now, when you bake them, we're going to bake them at 425 degrees for about 12 to 15 minutes. But before we do that, we're going to take an egg and we're going to make an egg wash, and we're going to brush the tops. Now, I'm not going to bake these today because I am going to store them. What I am going to do is I've got a smaller cookie sheet, I've got some parchment paper on here, and I'm going to lay these out on my cookie sheet. And we're going to put this in the freezer until these are mostly frozen, and then that way I can put them in a baggie and put them in the freezer without them sticking together. So these are going to go in the freezer for a little while, and once everything is frozen, we'll be able to organize it in the freezer. Okay guys, it's the next day. I'm sure everything is frozen solid. The chicken and the biscuits are frozen. We'll take care of those in just a little while. I've got one more thing we're going to make today, and that is the mix for my homemade protein oat waffles. I have just a little bit left, so we're going to refill our jar. The base for this mix is actually oats. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put 4.5 cups of oats in my blender. You could use a food processor for this. I'm using my blender just because it's the easiest one to clean. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to blend these up, like I'm going to pulse them until they are broken up but not powder. We're not trying to make an oat flour, we just want to get like kind of a chunky base. There we go. So we'll have some that are still whole, some that are broken up, and some that are crumbs. That's just the way the blender will do it. But that's okay. That's what we want. Is anybody else struggling with allergies this summer? Mine have been horrible. Makes it where I can barely see. Okay, to this we're going to add 4 cups of just plain all-purpose flour. You could use wheat flour if you wanted, you can use almond flour, any kind of flour that you want to add to this will work. Then we're going to add a half a cup of vanilla protein powder. So this one is a vegan, gluten-free option. This is just the one that I picked up. It does not have to be that, but you can certainly use the vegan option if that's what works for you. We're going to add a half a cup of that, and then we want to add 1 cup of raw cane sugar. And again, you could use whatever sugar works for you. I've got coconut sugar, I could add that, but I'm just going to follow what I've got written for now. And then we need 3 tablespoons of baking powder. There's our 3 tablespoons of baking powder. So now all I'm going to do is just stir this up and add it to my jar. Make sure I don't end up with flour or oats in my tea. Just going to use this funnel to put the rest, or put this in our jar, and it may be too much for this jar. And if that's the case, we'll just add it into, I've got plenty of jars, we'll put the rest in another jar. So this jar's full. Let's go ahead and set it to the side. And then actually, I'm going to pour this out and measure it because we're going to go ahead and make some up. So that might be what I need. So we need to make these now. You're going to use 2 cups of dry mix. We do need just a little more. Two eggs, 1.5 cups of milk, and a half a cup of melted butter. So 1.5 cup of milk. And I'm using 2%. You can use whatever milk you have or whatever milk that you like. We want a half a cup of butter, which is 1 stick, and my butter is frozen, so hopefully we can get this cut. There we go. Back in the fridge. Okay, while that butter is melting, we're going to go ahead and get our eggs out. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put the yolk in. I'm going to go ahead and put the yolk in the mix, and I'm going to put the white in here because we're going to whip that up a little bit. We're going to make sure that our eggs are good. Okay. Oh shoot. Well, we may not get this mixed up as well as I wanted because I dropped a little bit of the yolk in there. That's okay. Alright, so I'm just going to use my little stick blender and just whip this up. Now, the reason we're going to do this is if you stir in whipped eggs, it's going to make your waffles or your pancakes, whichever, a lot lighter and fluffier. Okay, ideally you would keep mixing this until you have some peaks like you were making meringue. Maybe not quite that hard, but since I dropped that little piece of yolk in there, I can't get it to do that. So we're going to go ahead and put this in. And this is an optional step. You could just put your eggs in as they are. I've done that before and they taste great. So we'll go ahead and add our melted butter in there. Now we're just going to stir this up. I wouldn't advise trying to whisk it like you would a normal batter, because since the oats are just chopped and not chopped into flour, it's going to be, you're going to end up with batter stuck in your whisk, because I tried that the first time I made these and it was a mess. Okay, so our batter's all mixed up. Now what I do is, since I'm using a mason jar, I just write on the lid what you need to do when you're making it. So I just put on here 2 cups of milk. Oh no, 2 cups of mix, 2 eggs, 1.5 cups of milk, and 1/2 cup of melted butter. That way I don't have to pull my recipe out every time. It's right there. If you're not using a mason jar with a lid like this, you can always just write it on a card, tie it around the top. Whatever way you want to do it so that it's right there for you. You know, this is when I kind of miss my house, because I had outlets everywhere in my house, and here I've got to kind of play around with things until I get it to work. So this is supposed to be non-stick, but I still go ahead and spray it a little bit with some spray because it's old enough that things will stick sometimes. And then I'm just going to go ahead and get it preheating. Okay, our waffle iron is preheated. So we're going to go ahead and just fill it. We'll close it and let it do its thing. One thing about this is using a flavored protein powder, so I'm using vanilla, it gives the waffles a hint of sweetness, so you don't have to use syrup if you don't want to. No, I don't like to eat mine dry, so I'm going to use syrup, but you could just use fruit on there, you know, however you wanted to eat these, but they do have a hint of sweetness on their own from that protein powder, so that makes them really good. So I prepped a baggie for our biscuits that we made yesterday. I put the date on there, and then I just wrote egg wash, 425, 12 to 15 minutes. That way, again, you don't have to go hunt down the recipe if you had it online or if you printed it and then you don't remember where you put it. Whenever you want to bake some, you've got the instructions right there. So this first batch of waffles is almost done. And I'm going to go ahead, obviously, and make up all of this, and then whatever I don't eat, which obviously I'm not going to eat this whole batch, I will put in Ziploc baggies and put in the freezer, and then that will be something that will be nice for me to just pull out in the mornings. I can take them to work, pop them in the toaster, and there you go. These are very hot, but they bake up, I like mine brown. They bake up nice and brown and crispy. So we're going to go ahead and put our next batch starting. We're going to go ahead and get the next batch started. And this makes 2 full waffle iron folds, so 8 of the 4x4 waffles. One tip, if you're making waffles for a large family or for, you know, more than just yourself, and you want to keep them warm and crispy, you can turn your oven on and set it really low, like at 200 or 225. And then as these come out of the waffle iron, just pop them in the oven. And then when everything else is ready and everybody's ready to eat, you can pull them out and they'll still be nice and hot. So here's our biscuits from yesterday. Here's the bag that I prepared. I'm just going to stick those in there. And now they're frozen and you don't have to worry about them sticking together in your freezer bag. And normally I make several recipes of this and put them in my freezer, but since I have limited freezer space at the moment, I just made the one batch. Once I get my big freezer in here, I can get my boys to get some free time to help me, or I might just end up having to hire somebody. I can make several of these batches and then I'll have them for throughout the fall and into the winter. My freezer is getting pretty darn full. Okay, our second batch of waffles is done. Pop those out of there. Ooh. We'll set our waffle iron back to cool, and I'm going to get me a couple of these. I'm going to use some of this real maple syrup that I bought. I'm really bad about not eating breakfast. I should actually have more protein, but I'm going to go ahead and do this. Okay, so we ended up with quite a few things. So I've got, I think I had 10 biscuits. I've got 11 pieces of my breaded chicken breast. And I've got 1, 2, 3, after today's breakfast, I've got 3 more meals worth of waffles. If my grandkids come over, they can have a waffle if they'd like. It's just nice to have some of this stuff prepped and ready and either in the freezer so that you can just throw it in the oven or fry it up, whatever. Or having this homemade waffle mix ready makes it easy too, and it's better than buying the mix at the store. It doesn't have the preservatives that you would find in a store-bought mix. So that is going to do it for this video. I want to thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate it. If you would hit that like button, that would help me out a lot. If you're not subscribed, I would ask that you do subscribe. I post new videos every Friday morning, 8 o'clock Central Time. I'm hoping to add a second day of videos here as I get back into the groove. Those will probably be on Tuesdays. For now, they're just on Fridays, but anyway, thank you very much for watching. I look forward to seeing you on the next video. And now I'm going to put everything away and eat my breakfast. Thanks, guys. Have a great day. Bye-bye.